Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show that talks about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire together and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to essence, to the grand mystery of why it is we're here, what we're here to do, what we're experiencing. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love these conversations about the divine, about the mysticism, the side of life that is overlooked for many for some portion of their lives until at some moment there's a quest for depth and meaning. And then this other doorway opens to this, what I like to call a magical adventure into finding out, the underpinnings of this matrix, this facade that we live in, which is just really fascinating to kind of peer behind the curtain and see the man behind the curtain, just like in Dorothy, in The Wizard of Oz, and then there's the wizard. Well, how does it work? Well, we like to interact with the wizard directly in this show. So I always have these wonderful guests on and to help us on our journey of inquiry. And we're going to have this beautiful conversation today because welcoming to the show the wonderful, and just feel her vibration. Oh my gosh, Gabriela Masala, I'm so glad you're here.
Such an honor to be with you. Thank you, Carrie Hummingbird.
Oh, I just love Gabriela. So Gabriela has been steeping in universal wisdom teachings, contemplative expressive arts, and energy medicine for over 20 years, and you can really feel it when you get in her presence. Her guidance is infused with pure love and sober clarity. Her skills dive into the heart of matters using creative process as a catalyst for transformation. And she's passionate about pioneering what it means to be fully alive. So she's a facilitator and a consultant, and her approach is holistic, compassionate, and integrative. Her programs catalyze breakthroughs and maximize emergent intelligence. And she works with a lot of different, forms. She's a lover of art, of music, of movement, of nature, humanity, and cosmology. And so, she's got a master's degree in culture and creation spirituality with a concentration in art as meditation. And her decades in professional world of mind, body, spirit education have taken her across the globe into diverse teaching environments. So today we're going to have a really wonderful conversation, just about how all of these different modes, yoga and dance and healing and expressive arts, like all this expression and singing and all of these beautiful things can really help us open our hearts and find out even more about what it is we're here to do, and as human beings, not doings. So I'm excited. Today we're going to have a great conversation, Gabriela. So I'm just curious, I always like to start off the conversation with how did you awaken to your path? What were maybe some few key moments or a story you like to tell about how you started awakening to who you really are underneath all the facade of who we told we were when we showed up.
Yes, yes, great question. I'll start by saying for me, it's been more of a journey of remembrance than awakening, and more of a journey of veils being pulled, sometimes many at once, and feeling like my persona is being, blown to smithereens, and other times very subtle lifting of the veils. I have the blessing that perhaps many of us have of, as a young child, I was very clear about the mystery and totality and infinite nature of our being. I felt very much clear that the vibration of love, the experience of love, was the sweet spot and was the reason I was here, and that I was part of a greater unfolding mystery. What I came to learn as soon as I was able to bring articulation to that as a young person in my early teens was a passion for the transformation of consciousness, which feels like such a funny passion for a young teenager to have. But from a very early age, I have oriented with fidelity to the inner life, and knowing that the source, the mystery, the divine, by whatever name any of us wants to call it, is my taproot and is my source and is my love. That's always been the most intimate relationship, and really what my life has always been devoted to. And so I've had many moments of flailing and falling on my face and forgetting, as you share in your book, brushes with dysfunctional relationships, or toxic environments, or abuse on any level. And yet the driving force has always been remember who you really are, remember why you're here. Love is the answer to every question, and really do the sacred work of being a catalyst for the transformation of consciousness on the planet at this time. And so everything has grown from that calling.
That is so beautiful. I really feel it through your voice, you know, and I know that you know how to use your voice to express your love from your heart. Like your voice is very well connected to your heart through the work that you do with song. I can feel it as you're speaking, you know, that grounded presence and that open channel. That's a channel that took me a while to unblock for myself because of, you know, the way I was raised, and not
Mhm.
intentionally, I know, not intentionally in my family whatsoever, but just that we inherited these patterns of disconnection from our own hearts. We inherited these patterns of protection and, you know, of fear, and that these things created walls, and that helped us to survive and feel safe, but then also didn't really let us express our hearts very openly. Has that journey, what does that journey look like for you to unleashing your heart and being able to express directly from your heart?
Great question, Carrie. There's, I'm almost 50, so, which I love. It just keeps getting richer, this life. So I have a lot of, again, as I said, places, moments where there was a veil lifted, a remembrance, an awakening, choices, right? As a young person making a choice that said, I could conform and fit in, or I could be free and be true to who I really am. And so as a young person, I was always the first one on the dance floor. I was always the one that might look a little bit weird or far out or dissonant from the mainstream. And yet there was a sense for a long time of like, how do I fit into this very narrow, tiny little box that's called reality in the consensus realm? And then at a certain point, maybe in my late teens, early 20s, I just said, I'm not going to fit in. I'm going to go for the bigger life. I'm going to bow to this mystery. This is, you said it so well, the magical adventure begins. And so my fidelity to trusting the inner guidance, to diving into the worlds of mysticism, everything esoteric, metaphysical I could find, yoga, meditation, prayer, indigenous, and connecting to my own indigenosity through my ancestry, and really coming alive with my love affair with life and with the planet, with nature, with the invisible realms as a relevant way to connect to life. That's really what has taken priority, right? So yes, I have struggled around the illusions of convention. I've done, like you, my work, and continue to, of deprogramming from all of these lies of separation, right? The consensual lie that we're matter in a world of matter, and having to deprogram from, even though that's never resonated with me, I know that we're energy in a world of energy. I know that we are multidimensional beings in a multidimensional experience. And yet there is this lie of separation, is what I think I'll call it today, that's really been a limited place to play in the marketplace. Like, how do I play in here but be authentic and free and expressive? And as you mentioned, a lot of my saving grace has been the power of movement, dance, play, expression, creativity, song, rhythm, music, so that these are places where all of us have access to our infinite, unlimited, expressive nature as divine creators. And in falling in love with that, I made it my professional work. And I think that's been a saving grace that keeps me in the sweet spot as much as possible.
Yeah, I would say for my journey, it's been a like a tug of war, you know, between trying to fit in and doing that model and doing the job that everyone expects you to do, to be responsible, that big word. a responsible word, and doing the thing that lights you up, like the thing that you're talking about. Like, it sounds like you just surrendered to the thing that lit you up and you said, well, forget about being responsible, the way that they're saying it. Because, you know, there's a lot of speak around, oh, well, if you do your art or you do your music or you do those things, then you won't be making very much money and you can't support yourself on that. There's like a lot of dialogue in our culture that actually actively tries to prevent people from doing creative expression work.
Yes, I agree. That's true. And there is a sobriety around how do I bring, you know it, you live it, all of these elements of the invisible world that I am a conduit for honoring the natural world, for honoring the creative nature of our being, and do that in a way where I'm also able to pay my mortgage and to buy groceries, which is one of the things I'm so sad we have to buy our food, and water for that matter. So there is a sense of that awareness. And yet at the same time, I feel that the conventions are nonsense, that those rules and regulations, that the true responsibility is to respond to our soul's dharma, to our soul work. And especially there was a time, I know that we're peers, yeah, we're contemporaries. So there was a time when I was younger where the lie of grow up and have a nice big house and some cars and some kids and get some good material possessions, where that was really bought into by a lot of people. And now what I'm seeing, even though on the superficial tip of the masses that still seems like it's consensual, I'm seeing such an awakening, such a movement of people who are saying, whoa, that's a lie. I'd much rather be free. I don't want to be successful by someone else's terms. I want to express the music I came to this planet to make. I want to leave this world a better place for the 7 generations after me. You know, it's like it's wake up time. We need all hands on deck. And the old conventions and lies, there's just no place for them anymore in my world.
Yeah, it's like a whole recalibration of everything we think is important because we were told it was important.
Mhm.
Because, you know, I also think it's really interesting that simultaneous with a lot of people, the younger generations and the millennials saying, no, we're not going to do that. No, we don't find that important. No, we don't agree. That simultaneous with that is their parents. You know, I would be that sort of that I'm cusping on that generation because I am 50 and I have a 20-year-old and I have a 17-year-old, and they're my 20-year-old's like, yeah, not really into this whole college thing. You know, like, I don't see the point of it. I'm going to spend a lot of money and then I better make sure that it's going to be applicable and I can pay back all my loans. And I can see the question in his mind, like, well, what do I do with myself? It's just a big
Right.
question. He doesn't know what to do with himself, and I don't know what to tell him because he's in a different time.
Mhm.
Except I say, well, follow your heart. Like, keep following your heart. I'd much rather you follow your heart and do something that you love and let spirit guide the way into that to make a potential for you to support yourself doing that, than to follow some path that you really don't care about. Because I did that. I balanced. I actually did the career thing, and then I also, you know, figured out a way to support my art habit. You know, I called it my art habit, you know, my expression habit. But in retrospect, I see how keeping that art channel open in my own brain was really important for my spirituality to unfold.
Right.
Like, it
Yeah.
actually comes through song and art and in your imagination and your creative center.
Yes, it does. It does. And even for the millennials like your son, you know, there's amazing programs, some that I'm aware of, that are creating, you know, a gap year for these young people who are saying, that's not my path. And so instead, they're giving them a gap year of learning to make tiny houses and living in intentional eco-village community and learning permaculture and regenerative design, learning a new way to live on the planet, right? Because we're not at a place anymore where we have to or really can do it the way it's been done. It's kind of evolve or die time on Earth. And so there are places that are sprouting up where people like your son, and certainly for us, you know, we're 50, we're just coming into our essential gifts and our real contribution to the kind of paradigm shifting that's happening. So yes, I would say that it is time to give ourselves the fullness of our voice and our creativity, and go into the imaginal realm to create a new story for humanity.
Yeah, going into the imaginal realm also needs space. Like it's very difficult to, as we were talking before we got on the call, but going into the imaginal space, is challenging to do on our crazy Western
Mhm.
schedule. Like Google Calendar goes beep, 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 and I got like another appointment, and then I got to go into the imaginal space after that and try to relax and get back into my imaginal space, and then beep, beep, beep. Now I got the next one. So there is this strange straddling of the two worlds right now for those of us who are called to be leaders of light. I know that you've got to be feeling, unless you're living in a commune right now, you've got to be feeling like the the tension between these two worlds in our own lives.
Definitely. And you said it so well, taking time for, and especially for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, we're turning towards the dark now. We're turning towards the winter solstice will be next for us. And that sense of turning in to the bear medicine, the cave, doing the regenerative uh, visioning time, doing the deep self-care, sleep is super important. And there's, I'm not a conspiracist, Carrie, though I do think there's something about frequency control, whether that's through the mass media or through buying into the frenetic pace of some of our city lifestyles. I know here in Austin, it is growing and developing over the top. So many cars on the road, so much do. And so there's, again, a place consciously as a, not only as a self-nurturing and self-loving act, but as the way that I can reboot to then contribute the most to life. I must say no to the overstimulation, no to the frenetic nature, no to overwhelm and overbooking and double booking myself. And it's a dance, it's a dance. It has felt sometimes like that salmon swimming upstream. And yet I know that for me, it's either face this and have the boundary and learn through it, even though there's moments where, I'm flailing in the process, or kind of be taken by a momentum that's not my soul's momentum. So I feel like such an imperative to be clear, right, about why we're here, what are our yeses, what's our true yes, our true path of heart, and then to be willing to say no to the rest. It takes courage.
Yeah, it's really a paring down. I mean, even I pay attention to astrology, and so I listened to Kai Pacha's report for this week in particular, and he was saying, yeah, this is all about paring down and really focusing in on what it is that you're actually here to do, and being brave and courageous and letting it go, letting go the things that are not a priority. And that really puts the heat on it, because then you for me anyway, I've got to then negotiate with the different aspects of myself. Like I have got my clear connection with my guides. I feel my body saying I need sleep, and and my ego saying, what are you talking about? There's way more sleep than we've ever gotten. So there's a lot of this little this honoring all these different voices within me and trying
Mhm.
to come to a balance between it all, and then focusing. That really helps to focus on what's actually important.
Yes, I totally agree. As you're sharing, I have this awareness of, I love that there's so many ways to have this conversation. And through the lens of science and quantum physics, we know now that when the analytical brain, or what we might also call the ego, beautiful part of us, we need it, it has its place. Um, but how can it be a servant to the path of heart, to the soul, rather than, the driver? And that when we're in the analytical mind, we will tend to go into judgment, measurement, comparison, separation, including I shouldn't be tired, I shouldn't be sleeping, I should be doing, or any of those shoulds are that analytical mind of separation. Where when we go into whole brain heart coherence, not only the creative and imaginal part of our brain, but literally also into the consciousness of our hearts, which I know you're such a lover, a practitioner, and conduit for as well. That when we come into that heart-brain coherence, it's like a sacred marriage, and then we can listen and be lived through wholeness, through the quantum model of reality that says that we are whole, we are unity, we are unified consciousness. That when we can just get into that current, I sometimes feel like it's a current of grace. Then
I love
there,
that current.
yeah, you are that current.
Yeah, I love it when I'm in the flow. You know, we're talking about the flow. And from the flow, like, it's actually kind of amazing to me. And I think this is why I'm able to relax this week, as I've been told to sleep so much, is because I have had those experiences of being in the flow where I could accomplish like 1,000 times more in 1 week than I would if I wasn't in the flow. Like, where it's sort
Yeah,
of miraculous how much gets done and so quickly, and how easy it all is, like with no struggle. Like, the right person calls at the right time and bam, there's the thing. And that, okay, well, that tour date's booked. Okay, awesome. That took 5 minutes. Whereas in the other model, you know, you could toil over that for weeks, you know, trying to make that connection
right.
happen. So I know that when flow occurs, everything happens with ease and grace, and it's just so fast. So I think that that experience of having had that is what allows me, when these moments arise, or this extended period in this case arise, where I need to sleep a lot more. I trust that, because I'm saying, okay, well, there must be something. If my body's telling me I'm that exhausted, then I must need sleep.
Yes, I agree. And there is something about any time that I feel my nervous system or my thinking, my brain thinking, you know, a lot of my guidance lately is stop thinking. Just stop thinking. And so there's a sense of control or force is again right back into that analytical mind, where the heart, and I don't need to tell you this, but if it's useful to anyone listening, including me, that the heart has an intelligence that we can trust. And I know about you that you've been touring the country, sharing your events and your awesome new book, still on the bestseller list. And you know, that's a lot of output. That's a lot of extension of your energy. And so it's natural, just like we're whole beings. You know, a flower doesn't just like bloom its entire life. We're cyclical beings, right? For all of that amazing output, there needs to be that deep dive into the void, that replenishment, that rest. And like, to honor that in this societal normalcy is like radical, you know? Like, it's so, I honor your nature, and so great that you're giving yourself what you need.
Yeah, and I'm really glad we're having this conversation, because I think this is something that we all face. It's just that we might argue with it. I know previously I used to argue with this a lot, like, that's where coffee comes in, right? I
You're
would
reading my mind. Yeah.
just brew the pot of coffee and handle that problem. But it's still, I guess I've gotten another level of being spoiled, I think, because I've had such a beautiful, clear connection, and
Mhm.
been in that flow where everything is just divinely synchronous and it's just happening, that I know that I want that. Like, it's not good enough for me anymore to just kind of drink my coffee and force it.
Right.
It's like I
Yeah.
want to get into the flow again. So I know that's only one way to do that, and that is to surrender.
That's the best way, right? That is always the best answer. Surrender is, yeah, it's an immediate relinquishment and flood into that current of grace, you know, and it's just this last month has been so intense for me on many levels, including having my car totaled when I was rear-ended,
Oh,
and
wow.
walking away from that, which was such grace, and being struck within 24 hours of that with 5 days of fevers and flu-like symptoms. And just during that time, I just decided I'm just gonna stop. I love yerba mate. That's been my last vice, has been a little bit of caffeine every day, and occasional coffee. But I just decided, like, I was flattened, and I was really, you know, talk about told to sleep. I was thrown into the dream time, and like, you will not do at your level of usual. You know, I'm usually like a hummingbird, like, hurrah, getting it done. And and through that, I decided, like, you know, I don't want to be overstimulated. I don't want to be, there's so much stimulation. I want to get really deep and really quiet and learn from the flow, that same flow that you're talking about that carries us and everything happens synchronistically, and learn from like the grandmother pace. The divine grandmother pace is also the flow. So I'm in the inquiry just like you and in the unknown, and I wouldn't be surprised as a result of our conversation today too, on this Day of All Saints, Day of All Souls, we receive a flash of new life to carry out our work.
Well, and so that leads us to, you know, really honoring the ancestors and honoring the path, the indigenous path. You know, the indigenous path is all about honoring the fact that our ancestors never leave, that they're always here with us, that we are the expression of their love, and that we are intrinsically connected. There's, you know, we can't disconnect ourselves from our ancestors, however much, you know, we might think in our Western ideology that we want to or we can. And even myself, you know, I certainly have challenges with my biological family. But these are things, as a new awareness that I've had through working the indigenous path, is that our ancestors are always there. They never leave. And to honor them is really to be in harmony with the gifts that they have to bring with you, and to ask for their support even with some of the things that maybe got ancestrally passed down to you that aren't serving you right now, to ask for support in relieving that burden.
Beautiful, well said. Yes, and there's that the sense of calling on our well ancestors, right? Not all of our ancestors are well. And so we can call on what I've been doing just before we talked today out in the green belt by the creek, called on my well ancestors, those who know how to who knew how to channel the creativity of life, who were resourceful and magnetized resources, who knew how to live in harmony, who knew how to sing their songs and really be in love with life, calling them to support right here and now, send backup. And then those who are not well, who maybe were still working out their patterns and block, to honor them, as you say, and to know that my living and loving is the greatest gift in every direction that I can give to the future generations as well as to the past and all those present. And lately I've been feeling into, I am an ancestor, you know, and the 7 generations forward who will tell the story of their you know, amazing magical auntie Carrie, or their crazy grandmother Gabriela, and what we brought forth. So I'm feeling this, you know, where the past and the future come into alignment in our own spines and hearts. And I feel like that's the greatest responsibility I have, to serve that with love and integrity and compassion and magic, to, you know, be willing to bring the magic back.
To be, yeah. And so a lot of the way that we bring the magic back is by, you know, this unity consciousness, like what you're talking about, is recognizing our place in the family line and in humanity's family, recognizing our place and our responsibility, the things that we have that we can respond to. So not responsibility is judgment, but this is a new responsibility, you know, not the one we were talking about earlier. The new responsibility, the redefinition of that word, which is really to be responsible, like we can respond. So whatever it is we can respond to bring love, that we say yes to that, and we lean into the discomfort rather than sort of letting a wall be built.
Definitely, yes, yes, leaning in and doing our own work. I know that there's so many places I continue as a mom to a teenager, you know, like really cleaning up where I'm projecting and wanting to fill her with my beliefs of how things are, and then clearing my own beliefs, as well as really letting her be free. I mean, there's so many continual ways that we can keep leaning in on the places uh, where we meet density, where we meet darkness that has been, that is not yet befriended. Because I feel like once we can walk through darkness, our own, the world's in general, without judgment, and be a friend of the dark. Then we can see in the dark. And I don't know about you, but I feel like that's part of the gift of what I'm here to bring, is that sense of wholeness. Because as long as we're in judgment of any part of ourselves, inside or out, we're turning away from the divine on some level. I mean, it's a mystery. I don't have it figured out at all.
Yeah, well, you got a lot figured out. You know, I love that you said that you give your daughter space, and that you honor that you also are projecting, and that you honor that, and that you're aware of that. That's the thing I'm talking about too with in the mother wound work that I'm doing right now with White Buffalo Calf Woman, is we're sorting through this kind of issue of how the mother has played a role in our patriarchal society for the last 2,000 years, and we're getting ready to totally flip the script on that. And in the process, we get to be the ones that flip the script. So it's a little intense right now. For those of us who chose to be a mother in this particular lifetime, it's wow, it's a lot. And it's really, I feel like it's changing the pattern from the patriarchal, like top-down control, and this is my way or the highway, and this is how it is, and you have to conform, to this inquiry and a spaciousness to allow each child to be an explorer of their own territory and to chart the waters. So really more like being a guide and a mentor than a controlling agent.
Yes, yes, beautifully said. I say to my daughter almost every day, I want to support you to author your own life, not to bow to me or your father as your authorities, not to need the culture to be an authority, but to authorize your own life, right? From the deepest place in you you can find. And I really aspire to parent in that way, where it's a meeting soul to soul, a mentorship, because we do have a responsibility. You're right, the ability to respond to this is a young person that is learning their own edges in a world where so much is falling apart to come back together in a new way. And how can I humbly honor that? So yeah, all of the wisdom that's available is welcome.
Yeah, because we're all navigating this, and there's no clear-cut answers because we're in the inquiry of it together. We know that what has been is not largely not serving us, and so we understand that. We know that's true. But then the big question is, well, what does serve us? And that's the inquiry part. And this is the part where a lot of people have trouble because it's a gap. You got to hang out in the gap between what you knew that wasn't working and what you don't know yet that will work so much better, but we haven't got there yet. And the gap.
Right. And that we can't source that next step from where we were, right? That
Right. It's
class.
an all new sourcing.
It is. And there's again, you said it so well, surrender. For me to fall in love with being in the unknown and get comfortable in it and expand the comfort zone of being in the unknown until that emergent new life is shown or revealed, and that having a intimate relationship with the invisible world, the ancestors, spirit, the divine, that is like a deep, deep listening to the subtle, that if I am caught up in the doings of the world and of matter reality, I can miss those things. And so again, that sense of sleep, meditation, some prayer, contemplative life, any way that we express our creativity that just plugs us back into source, where we can be moved and listen, is so essential right now.
And we can consciously take actions, doings to open up that channel,
Oh,
right? So talk about the singing as a way of opening back that channel up.
sure, I will. And I'll say too that one of our shared ways of life, right? There's the practices and then there's the way of life, the walking meditation, the ultimate walking meditation.
The one
And
what just happens when we walk around in our lives.
yeah, and walking in beauty, right? So
Yeah.
for me, actually, my practice of singing comes from a practice of walking in beauty, to be walking through the world. And whether there's always a song on my lips, or if it's the time that I take out in the morning sun, or out in the natural world, or even driving, but that sense of blessing life and loving life as we go, and the power of song to do that. So I've been singing and collecting songs since I was a little girl from all over the world. I've always been a lover of devotional chants, from Sanskrit to Yoruban to different mother tongues, more recently in many indigenous traditions from all over the world. But the practice that you and I had talked about sharing some is the song carriers tradition. And this is a way of walking through the world. It's a women's practice. It's primarily a women's water ceremony song circle practice backed up by the fire. So we have a very simple altar of fire and water. This practice was founded by amazing sister Madi Sato, who her work is praisingearth.org. Amazing work I know you'll love. And it's really about rerouting and reweaving the earth stories through song, and mostly through mother tongue songs, because the mother tongue songs don't have, I'm grateful we can speak in English and we're communicating, but really we're speaking through vibration, right? That's the real language where our hearts met from the first moment I set eyes on you. And so the mother tongue songs are a foundational, primordial sound medicine. And with them come the praise, the shedding of grief, the transformation and the calling to new life, the prayers, the gratitudes. And these songs have been just a radical gift to my life and all of the women who are singing with us, to really go forward and reweave and restore reality through our song.
Yeah, and through your heart, through the heart that comes from the singing, through the vibration that you're talking about. Because we can say one word. I could say a word when I'm angry, and I could say the same word when I'm feeling loved, and a completely different message is conveyed. And I think, now is the time when it's this added level of consciousness, awareness of the energy with which we're speaking and sharing and communicating in the world, and how we're using the word, the power of the word and the power of vibration. And are we letting it come from our minds? Are we letting it come from our repressed traumas? Are we letting it come from our healing and our heart and our wholeness?
Beautiful, beautiful, life-changing inquiry.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna noodle in people's brains now, I hope, as something to consider. There's really no, we're entering into 2020, Gabriela, and 2020 is clear vision. So the more we awaken, the more we know, and the less hiding there is. And the ego loves to hide, so we're going to have less spaces for that available because of the more knowing.
Yes, yes, and may the ego be loved into surrender. Like
Yes.
to hide from what? To hide from the infinite golden love totality of what we all are. I don't want to hide from that.
No, I feel like it is, like I've gotten these downloads that this actually is like it's like an elevation of consciousness of the human being into the galactic cosmos of beings, of other forms of life. Like this is sort of like the song of the human, raising up its
Yes,
consciousness,
yes.
into the rest of creation as a
Hallelujah.
welcome member, but we've got to do the tough work of overcoming this fear and the separation.
Yes, and we're doing it. So beautifully said. I have the same download.
Oh, that's so great. I love it when downloads match.
Really, I have very clearly a sense that we are human being, right? We have this divine circuitry that we are just beginning to get online and light up, and that when we are able to have a homecoming, a cosmological homecoming, for my whole life, I have felt so aware that, come on, we actually believe the story that we're the only beings on this little tiny rock in this infinite universe where there's intelligent life. Is this even intelligent life? Do you know that and you do, that there's so much intelligence in the multidimensional realms. There's such an immense, beautiful community of beings, and including humans. And that I feel as we are welcomed back into our community, our intergalactic community, we can get online and really light up to the brilliance that is possible in this form.
Yeah, and like I said in my book, we can transcend the human drama because that's not the most interesting thing to be doing, even though it seems it is. It's
Right. It's just a
really,
story. It's just one tiny little story.
it's a one story. It's not the most interesting thing that could be happening right now. So we have way more infinite possibilities to explore than human drama. So yeah, so I love it. Oh, thank you so much, Gabriela, for all that beautiful wisdom. That is just great. I love when we get the same downloads. Isn't that wonderful? So affirming.
Yes.
So what recommendations do you have for people that want to unleash their creativity? Because I know you also really explore sacred geometry. I mean, so many things. You're such a creative person. You're just unleashed in your creativity. How can people follow in your footsteps? Like, do you help people with this? How can people
I
unleash
do.
their own creativity?
I do. I have a private practice in Austin, Texas, where I see people one on one and we get creative. So we certainly use dialogue and inquiry, which I love, but we get the art supplies out, we get into the body, we use the voice and sounding as a way to move energy. And it's really unique to each being. And then I love women, love working with women, and really feel like the women are the way showers and the midwives for this shift in paradigm. And so I love working with women's groups and retreats. I do song carrier work here in Austin, Texas, and circle with the women to sing. And what I'd say too, to that piece of how to unleash your creativity, that it's really walking in our own footsteps. So I know that each one of us, from my experience, uniquely awakens and uniquely unfolds into their soul's dharma. And what I know about creativity is that it is a catalyst for evolution. And so whatever lights you up, right? Whomever is listening, how do I really unleash my creativity? First, ask that analytical mind and critic, step aside, and then to wake up that magical divine inner child that for most of us, we knew from a very early age what lit us up. And we knew through our own exploration of singing and dancing and playing and climbing trees and making art, we knew that that was the fast track to aliveness. And so whatever turns you on, whether it's gardening or cooking or painting or ecstatic dance or contra dance, whatever it is, but to really take ownership and reclaim that you are a divine creator and we need your creativity alive and flourishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And do it even if it makes you feel ridiculous. Like almost especially if it makes you feel ridiculous.
That's right. I love ridiculous. I love goofy. I love silly. I love being unbound. So, that place in us that feels ridiculous and then shuts down, probably that place in us was told at a very early age that we were either shamed or not good enough, or, like this adulting that happens for so many of us, where we start adulting and get responsible and then shut down our very own innate, magical, playful goofiness, which is a superpower, you know?
Yeah, and it doesn't just okay, so I want to also bring in this concept of like holding it all of it, right? The
Yeah.
serious, the gravity, yes. We have the gravitas. We have done some destruction to the earth and we are going to have to work backwards from it and it's going to be challenging. Okay, so gravitas. Boom, boom, boom. But then on the other side, we have silliness and joy and love and dance and all the things that make life worth living over here. So we can hold the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to, if you're being silly, it doesn't mean that you don't think it's grave over here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that's what I love about the shamans. They taught me that because they take their work very seriously, but they don't take themselves seriously at all.
Agreed. Yes, yes. And I love what you're doing with your hands here, where it's, hand in hand. Grief and praise go hand in hand. And wow, am I experiencing that more than ever. Well, I will have hours where I am just being wept for the
Mm.
desolation and ruin and despair that I feel for the earth and humanity. And then there has to be that embrace of wholeness where if I sink into that, I'm not really able to serve in the way I'm being asked to serve. However, I can't deny it because it's an energy that is present and that is real. And I feel like that's part of the dance right now. How do grief and praise go hand in hand? How do we find that which elevates, uplifts, and connects us through joy, and at the same time hold the intensity of what we are facing into? And you said it so well: lean in and surrender.
Lean in, surrender, and be willing to feel it all, everything.
Yes.
And that's that massive, that's when you can do the whole scale, right? Like in terms of music, where you can sing the really low bass and you can sing the really high soprano and you do the whole spectrum. That's like a gift, that's really feeling. That's like we're here to feel, we're here in this body to feel and hold it all. And so don't like, I don't know, I can't tell you not to take the pills, but don't take the pills. And I'm not supposed to say that, but I just believe in feeling it all. There's nothing wrong with tears and grief.
Mm-hmm. I
It's
do.
beautiful, and it's like a rainstorm in your heart that washes it clear. Like when you allow the grief to come through, is actually a beautiful cleansing. And then this, like your heart can sing a note that's so pure because it's coming through all that rain. I don't know. There's just, it's like maybe that's
That's
the rainbow.
beautiful. Yeah. Yes. Right from your heart. Woo. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's true. And grief is a process of transformation. I don't know what others who are listening, how they relate to their grief process. But more recently, I really relate to my grief process as a journey. It doesn't just drop me into despair and leave me in the pit. It carries me when I'm willing to feel through whatever is flowing, that same current of grace. It delivers me to a new place. And then in the process, to stay creative, to stay, even if it's just writing a haiku or doing a little energy dance while we're weeping, whatever it is, but to really be with the power of syntropy, even in really difficult emotional processes, rather than collapsing into entropy and staying there.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I was getting this overall picture of really all we've been talking about here is how to soothe the ego to just do what the soul's asking, you know, because it is a flow. I mean, the grief is a flow, the needing to sleep, that's a flow, and then being in the flow and being all jazzed up and being hummingbird, that's a flow. It's all part of the same flow. Your soul's just trying to guide you through it. And so all this speaking is really just to soothe the ego into going relaxing and saying, okay, yeah, okay, I'm doing the right thing. Okay, I can trust. Okay, this is what I'm supposed to be experiencing right now. And
Yes,
there's nothing broken, it's not a problem, and everything's working just fine. And I can just surrender into this experience.
yes, yes. To bow to the mystery, to bow to something bigger than the ego, and know it's we're carried by an unbelievable mystery and grace.
Yeah. Beautiful. Gabriela. Oh my gosh, I knew this was going to be a gorgeous interview. I'm so grateful. So grateful. And is there anything that you want to point people to get started with you or to learn more about you?
Well, they can come to my website. That's www.gabrielamasala.com, Gabriela with one L, and reach out if they want to connect. And more importantly, I'd say connect to themselves and get out on the earth and connect to the sky. And I'm always there if they want to reach out to me. And then also everything they need is also accessible within them.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Well, I love this. I love this interview. It's really beautiful. And if you out there listening, if you got some value from listening to this, or there was some key points you really loved, leave us a comment wherever you found it. Let us know that it touched you and that you got something from it. Let us know what that was. And If you want to share it out to somebody that you think might benefit, then please do that. And please, you know, subscribe to Soul Nectar Show and click like and comment and all that, because that helps that iTunes engine algorithm on the computer go, oh, this is something that would be beneficial. Let me promote this to other people. So it's just, we got to teach the computer that this is valuable content that needs to be spread. So thank you so much. And I like to give everybody kisses on the way out. So would you like to join me,
I
Gabriela?
would love to.
Okay, here we go with kisses. So,
Ready?
mwah. Beautiful. We'll see all of you next week on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.